Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1375, 1375. I'm Mike Matthews, broadcasting from Café Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont, the last place on earth. Today, Bison Bentley, Valentino, Madame Rutabaga. As I look outside the window of Café Anyway, I see it's dark. It's a little bit sprinkly here in the Bay Area. We had such a hot week last week.
Daily Podcast.
And I didn't have to walk forever, miles and miles this morning. I got to drive.
Daily Podcast.
And make a nice, big, huge carbon footprint. Yeah, I think you should have a stint when you go to...
Got through that. I got into it.
Yeah, that was my song for today. I am not a fan of Slate Panoply. Have you ever checked out any...
Daily Podcast.
There was a podcast I used to listen to called Backstory. It was an awesome historical podcast, and they went on Panoply,
Daily
this network
Podcast.
of podcasters.
Yeah!
And within a few months, they were gone. They were done. They stopped doing the show completely. Panoply is this very... You know, sometimes I think I'm liberal, and then I listen to Slate Panoply, and I think I am so not. So that is what it is at Slate. There's all these networks in the world of podcasting. Look who just walked in. What's that one? Maximum Fun? That's what? Earwolf? You've got your radio stations that put out various shows. So for a podcaster like myself to be just doing one show on his own, DIY, I guess is unusual. Look, walked in. Somebody else walked in too.
Hello, Michael Mash, it's Madame Rutabaga. You are talking about something?
Yes. Here, look at my notes here. A friend of mine wants to replace my roommate. Oh, yeah. I got a couple friends that want to replace my roommate. But no, my roommate is still staying for I don't know how long, but he was really helpful this past weekend. He was able to feed my dog. It took me a long time to get home from work because I didn't have a car over the weekend, and I was using all the wonderful Bay Area public transportation, the BART, which provides an unlimited amount of source material for this podcast.
And here's today's podcast picture.
And the podcast picture... Oh, that's what I forgot to do! I knew I was missing something. I'm like, here, let's go. Let's do the podcast. 1, 2, 3, go. And then whoops. I was very happy having my car back yesterday because that meant I could go to one of my favorite places to go, and that's Fairmont Ridge, which I took several pictures of. But that's not the picture. I want to do the one. Oh, yeah. So... several years ago, I would say over 5 years ago, I went to the farmers market that they have at the Ferry Building in San Francisco. I went with my then wife and the woman who provides the voice that we just heard for the podcast picture, and then she shows up at the end of the show letting you know where you can find the show. And that we went to the farmers market. It's right there. And the view of the Bay Bridge is wonderful. Well, I uploaded this picture to Google Photos yesterday using... I have a thing called Picasa. Google put out Picasa, and it's very interesting. The show that I helped produce, the morning show, the morning show host was talking about all of the things Google has done that has failed. Google Glass, we were talking about that last show and about how it's been updated. But then all the other things they've done over the years, Google Reader, that went away. Google Answer, a lot of things I didn't even know about. Google did. What was it called? Google Friendly or Ready or Lively. Yeah, Google Lively, and then their virtual world thing, and all this stuff they've done that have kind of come and gone. And I love that sort of stuff because it's like the thing that Disneyland Disneyland has all these rides and whatnot.
The front panel will close automatically. Please remain seated at all times.
No, Mike, I didn't know they had rides at Disneyland. No, it's true. But they take out so many rides to put in new rides to get more people to show up at the park. Which you can't go to Disneyland anymore. There used to be these days at Disneyland that you could go where there'd be nobody there. People would tell me, oh, Mike, you got to go to Disneyland the day after Halloween or the day after New Year's or whatever. And that's when you got to go because you can get on every ride super fast. Well, I don't think there's any days like that anymore because Disneyland is just so proliferated our mindset, and everybody's going there all the time from all around the world, and they've made Anaheim so accessible to the airports there, and they've got all their resorts, and they've totally built up Anaheim, the home of the first Disneyland park. Of course, then they made the Magic Kingdom, Disney World, as some people call it, in Florida, Orlando, Florida. But what they do is Disneyland takes rides out and puts new ones in. They took out the Trip Through Inner Space ride. We heard a little bit of that sound effect earlier from that ride. And you can go on YouTube and actually ride the Trip Through Inner Space ride that used to be where now Star Tours is, and see what that... I used to love that ride, even though the whole concept of being shrunk and transported into a snowflake, and it's describing to you atoms and water molecules, and Monsanto was the big sponsor of it, and Monsanto, well, has done some interesting genetic engineering of plants and has put many a farmer out of work, and there's all kinds of controversy behind Monsanto. But Google has had all these things that have... Oh, one other thing, a side note to rides that have come and gone. There's also been inventions of cereal. There's been all kinds of cereals that have come and gone, food products. And there is a warehouse somewhere, there's a museum somewhere, I heard about this, that every new product that any company has ever come out with, they have saved a box of in this warehouse. I heard about this. This is now maybe 20 years ago, so I don't know if they still have this thing, but they would save. And I find that fascinating. There used to be the Coke, for example, has come out with all kinds of flavors that didn't work. There used to be 7-Up wanted to get into the cola world, so they created a cola called Like, and I remember I had a Like t-shirt, and it was just called Like. Hey, it has no sugar in it, and it has no caffeine. I think that was the big selling point of this cola that was made by 7-Up. And I have a book called Fogotten Fads and Fashions, and it talks about all kinds of things that didn't work out. There was, before the DVD, which was preceded by the Laserdisc, which was like looked like a record, and you would have a movie on it, this thing, and stick it in a machine. It was crazy expensive, and you could watch movies on that before the DVD player. Well, they had before that, it looked like a record. It was actual vinyl, and somehow the movie went it on this. Well, that didn't work out, that technology. It talked also about Buckminster Fuller and some of the things that he made, the geodesic dome, that really, it didn't take off to the extent that he was hoping for, although you still see amazing geodesic domes. And circling back to Magic Kingdom in Florida, Epcot has its huge geodesic dome, its landmark, sort of its Sleeping Beauty castle. When you walk into the park, there's that. Now, all of this to say, Google has come up with things that have come and gone, and you can see old computers talking about things that have come and gone, forgotten stuff. If you go to the Computer Museum in Mountain View, it's right next to San Jose, Sunnyvale, that area, there is this... They have all these old computers, and dang, I should have posted a picture from that. Can I change my podcast picture? Shoot. All right, maybe I'll post one of those. I was just told that I'm not allowed to change the podcast picture. Even though it's my own show. Well, yeah, so they have all the old things, the Pong video game terminal situations that you would go and play at the arcade and whatnot. All of this to say, Google, where was I going with this? I've lost all the steam that I had. But you can find us on Google Play, which I'm told doesn't work so well these days. Maybe Google is going to make that a forgotten Google item. Who knows? But who else is here?
Hello, Mike. This is Valentino, the parking attendant.
And this is Bison Bentley. Do you know that?
We've been waiting forever, Day. You've been talking about the history of whatever.
Yeah! Come on, wrap it up! Do you know that?
All right, well, we do have some news in the This Is Interesting segment. And the website is mikesdailypodcast.com. That's still around. And there's Google Photos. I think that's where I was going back to. Google Photos, I'm glad that they did create that, because what they did was they made the picture, the podcast picture. Because I uploaded the picture to Google Photos using Picasa, which was a program that you downloaded to your computer from Google, and it basically organizes your photos. Well, now, Windows stole the concept and now has it as part of their Windows 10, where I forget what they call it now. I think it's just called Windows Photos or Windows 10 Photos, and it organizes it all there on your desktop. Now, Picasa will allow you to upload photos to Google Photos, and Google Photos then took the picture that I had uploaded yesterday and made it black and white. But you can tell me what you love about the internet or hate about it. You can call me at 336-MM-DAILY, or you can email me mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com, and all of those links and whatnot can be found at mikesdailypodcast.com. The Amazon link, if you're going to buy anything on Amazon. We got a little interesting story about Amazon we'll get to. Actually, let's do that one right now.
This is interesting.
Wow, this is interesting.
Yeah, if you're going to buy anything on Amazon,
It's pretty interesting.
you can go to mikesdailypodcast.com, and that helps us out if you do that. There's also a PayPal if you'd like to help us out that way. No, you don't? Okay, never mind then. And there's past podcast pictures. So, Amazon put a bid in to buy Whole Foods. $13.7 billion, which is a low amount. Whole Foods did want more, but apparently they've gone down in value. Experts say the most immediate changes would likely be in warehouses that customers never see. This, according to Bloomberg, that suggests that the jobs that could be affected the earliest would be in the warehouses, where products from suppliers await transport to store shelves. As Amazon looks to automate distribution, cashiers will be safe for now. So they're going to do a little... Amazon sees automation as a key strategic advantage in its overall grocery strategy. Whole Foods has 11 distribution centers specializing in perishable foods that serve its stores. It also has seafood processing plants, kitchens, and bakeries. That's the one thing I love about Whole Foods. The one close to my work in Fremont is they have this wonderful... On Fridays, I don't know why they always do this on Fridays. They have this... some kind of salmon dip. And they put it out there with crackers, and you can help yourself. Ooh. They also have kitchens, bakery. By the way, okay, you might find that disgusting. I find people's taste in food and things that they can and can't eat just amazing. I was talking to someone yesterday who was talking about how they can't have black pepper. Yet the same person will put the hottest hot sauce possible, made from a type of pepper, on their food all the time. I don't understand. What's going on there? Black pepper seems so weak, so ineffective, and then you put this hot sauce, habaneros, jalapenos, whatever, on your food. But hey, that's how people roll. So that's what's going on with Amazon. Now to something a lot more pressing, and that would be the White House has declared that it believes Bashar al-Assad's regime is preparing to carry out another chemical attack, and warned that the Syrian leader and his military would pay a heavy price if it went ahead. The unusual public warning last night appeared to be intended to deter the regime from repeating its use of chemical weapons against its rebel-held cities and towns. It may also have been aimed at the regime's backers in Moscow and Tehran, who have resolutely backed Assad and denied the regime's responsibility for chemical weapons use. On Tuesday, the Kremlin described the warning as an unacceptable threat. Then this happened. You know, the Senate bill is trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, but it was edging toward collapse, the Senate bill, yesterday, after the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office said it would increase the number of people without health insurance by $22 million. I mean, by 22 million people by 2026. Woo, it's early. And I overslept. Did I mention that part today? I overslept. Oops. 2 Republicans, Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Rand Paul of Kentucky, said they would not vote. They would vote against even debating the health care bill. Joining Senator Dean Heller of Nevada, who made the same pledge on Friday, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin hinted he too would probably oppose taking up the bill on an expected procedural vote as early as Tuesday, meaning a collapse could be imminent. And then there also were 3 CNN staffers that resigned after the network retracted a story tying a top President Trump ally to a Russian investment bank. Thomas Frank, the author of the story, Eric Lichtblau, an editor in the CNN investigative unit that ran the story, and Lex Harris, who oversaw the unit, have all left CNN. The story connected Anthony Scaramucci, a top proponent of Trump, to a Russian investment fund run by a bank controlled by the Kremlin. In the aftermath of the retraction of a story published on CNN, CNN has accepted the resignations of the employees. An internal CNN investigation reportedly found that the normal editorial processes weren't followed in the story's editing and publication. Only one anonymous source was used in the story, and typical parts of CNN's workflow, such as fact checkers, were reportedly not utilized before publication. Oops. This according to the... And that, so it had to do with that. Now, there's a very interesting podcast out right now by Warren Alney, to the point where he has a lot of guests on, and they talk about how Russia, the really, really rich folks in Russia, the oligarchs and whatnot, are investing in places like New York and London and buying up huge mansions and hotels, and just real estate would blow your mind, and they just leave them empty. They're just big investments, sort of like safety deposit boxes for their money, and how that has increased the real estate costs in Russia and New York to such an amount nobody can afford to live there. In the end, who does that help? If the populations move away, I think we need to think smart and get out of those cities. Move away. Move away. And go towards the light. I don't know what I'm saying there. Okay, we're wrapping this show up as we go outside of Café Anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcaster Valley. Barry Cadden, the head of a drug compounding firm blamed for a meningitis outbreak that killed 76 people, was sentenced to 9 years in prison after his conviction on racketeering and mail fraud charges. Ooh, all the things going on in the pharmacy world. And then that guy, that Bro Pharma dude, he also had, I don't have that story in front of me, but the guy who increased the cost of his medicine some crazy 500%, whatever. Yeah, I don't have that one, but there's something that went down yesterday with him, too. The sentence was imposed by Monday by U.S. District Judge Richard G. Stearns after a lengthy hearing in which victims of the outbreak pleaded for the maximum possible sentence. Stearns rejected both the call for a 35-year sentence from federal prosecutors as well as a plea for a 3-year sentence made by Cadden's lawyer. Stearns said he would have imposed a more severe sentence had he been convinced that Cadden 50 knew the drugs being shipped by his New England Compounding Center of Farmington, Massachusetts, were potentially lethal. Stearns also was critical of regulators who failed to act against Cadden's company sooner. Only the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention recognized the magnitude of the outbreak. Martin Shkreli, Pharma Bro, his fraud trial opened in New York. And he is the former pharmaceutical chief executive who's gone to trial in New York, charged with fraud. Well, talked about forgotten things. And we're remembering some other things, but honestly, everything in my brain is gone. Which means we should wrap up the show. Next show, we're going to have the wonderful Shelley Shuhart, Floyd the Floorman, and John Deere the Engineer. Enjoy your day!
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com.
Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com.
See you tomorrow. Bye!